Hold on. I gotta take this other call.
Right. All right, we're live here at the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by the returning Jeremy Selenfriend. It's very nice to have you back.
It's nice to be back. It's a lot quieter than when I'm usually on.
Yeah, it's usually many people, and I think some alcohol, and
Maybe a little.
Yeah,
maybe a little too much.
Yeah. First time on the video show too.
Yes, and yeah, first time solo. I've always had a group of some of the other East Coast effects artists on with me, big or small.
So first, before we get just about you, how about so do you guys just all become friends working together on stuff in the East Coast? Because I think there would also be like some competition involved.
I mean, there's a good amount of healthy competition. Some of us are always vying for the same jobs, and sometimes some of us get them, sometimes the other one get them. For the most part, we try and root each other on while, shit talking each other behind our backs. But no, for the most part, we all get along. It's too tight knit a community for any real animosity. We all need each other. I mean, all the guys that I'm in competition for, and women for that matter, I also then need to hire if I get that job. So, it all stays relatively friendly.
Yeah. So I was happy to see that you were involved in Smile for lots of reasons. I thought it was one of the best movies of the year, one of my favorite horror movies. It was cool. There's actually several people I've had on the show over the years that were involved.
That's awesome. I was really, not that I was expecting not to enjoy it, but I was really pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. We made it. It felt like a much smaller film when we made it. It was originally going direct to Paramount Plus, and then somewhere along the way it caught fire, and the director Parker turned it into magic, and it became massive. And I'm so glad for it. It's so well deserved.
Was that from just like the buzz online? Like, when did you like start to see, oh, there's something here?
The first time I got wind was when they put the trailer in front of Talk. That's when I realized, oh, this has become something much more than I was expecting. That's fantastic. Because From Go was a great script. I jumped through hoops for months to become part of that crew. I worked my ass off to secure my position on it. It was called Something's Wrong with Rose originally, which was, I think the original short film it was based on was Laura Hasn't Slept.
Yeah.
So yeah, it went through a couple title variations and ultimately landed on the commercially friendly Smile.
Yeah. No, it works. And I thought it was a great combination of a lot of things, because it's got like jump scares, which I know some people hate jump scares for some reason. I think they're good. They're cool if they're they're part of a movie. And
even the Emphasis used them.
Yeah, so you had that, and then it gets very strange at the end. And also thought it had like really interesting themes in the movie. It was a lot deeper movie than I thought it was going to be.
Agreed. Yeah, the really solid thread of mental illness and mental decline, and Sosie Bacon just pulled it off miraculously. That's not me, kissing the ass of the actor in the movie. Like, she was amazing in it. Like, it's clear of her acting pedigree and her, her famous lineage there.
So you said about you read the script. So I was actually wondering about that. When you're like the FX artist, do you get the scripts in advance always? I guess just like anyone like trying to get involved in the movie, an actor.
Yeah, well in advance on that one. I got to read it. I guess last summer I was up in Boston helping out on Black Panther, and I got the script and I was putting together my budgets, and we were shooting all overnight. So I would do that. Then during the day I'd be on the phone with the producer and the line producer and the UPM and trying to land the job. And there were a lot of phone calls and a lot of meetings and a lot of revisions. So yeah.
You said they're working on Black Panther. What's
I subtly dropped that in.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's pretty cool, obviously.
No, I was a day playing additional on that on the Boston unit for my buddy Joel Harlow, who I do a lot of work with, Oscar winning and Oscar nominated and world renowned morphology and Joel Harlow. So
yeah. Well, I was going to say about like comic book movies, because people will say, "Oh, I hate comic movies" and all this stuff. But there's a lot of people who get, when you look at the credits, there's like thousands of people there that are making a living or getting paid, working on
them. Those movies they're massive. They employ hundreds of people. And I mean, now they're making 4 movies a year and 3 or 4 TV shows a year, and just that one franchise, like, all those things, they put a lot of people to work, and no, they're not always amazing. Black Panther I happen to love. I think it's one of the best things
I think it's one of the
Marvel's
best
done in years, but
Yeah.
you know, they're not always great, but the production value in them is almost always top notch.
Neither is every horror movie great.
That's
I think it's
very,
just kind of
very
a
true.
genre. It's a big genre of films, and some of them are better than others. And if you don't like them, you don't have to go see them, or
Exactly.
you can go see something like Smile, which I was happy it really did well too. Not
Yeah,
since you were
yeah,
involved, but
no, I was so glad to see how well it took off. Parker really deserves it. He's really, I mean, that was his first film. Like, that is
oh really?
a director that's going to have a storied career.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't you knew him from Boston? You said
No. I that's just when we first started talking.
Oh, okay.
No, I was recommended on the heels of Goodnight Mommy by one of the producers to talk to them, and we just, you know, everyone kind of hit it off, and they really went to bat for me. You know, smaller effects company. What it ultimately came down to is the studio Paramount said, well, look, we need a big name monster shot for this movie, or we're going all digital with it. So ADI was awarded the contract on the monster at the end. Spoiler alert, sorry for anyone that hasn't seen it. And I got to do all the other effects throughout the film. So, you know, all the visceral stuff that takes place from start to finish up until that monster moment. Yeah. And then, you know, I got to put together the crew for that. I was supposed to be part of the team helping, but COVID came along and kept me home during those days.
Yeah. How did that affect you? Your career, COVID?
I mean, it shut us all down. It shut 99% of the film and television industry down for a solid 5 to 6 months. You know, I think everyone in my career can remember where we were and what we were doing on March 12th and March 13th of 2020. Like, we'll all know what job we were on and where we were heading. I had just made it through the Lincoln Tunnel on my way to work, and then I got the call, hey, like, already knowing that plenty was shutting down. Broadway had already shut down at that point. I was literally hoping for a couple days work on this new job because I had taken a month off. Like, I had wrapped out a job. I was enjoying some downtime. And I was like, okay, it's time to get back to work. Let me jump into this. I was working on an Apple TV show, and then I was starting work on Lisey's story, the Stephen King adaptation. And yeah, I was heading into my first day of what was supposed to be a 5-week stint, and we got that call. So that was tough. And then, I guess mid-September, I finally got the call, hey, are you available? I was like, well, of course I am. And, you know, what a wonderful text to finally get. And that actually was Back to Lisey's story, which was one of the first shows back in New York. You know, we didn't even have a return to work agreement in place. It was all very, you know, hey, we're all going to test frequently. It's all kind of, we're playing it by ear. Like, there was no rhyme or reason to what we were doing. And it was absurdly safe. I have a photo of me at my first day of work, and I'm more covered up and protected than my wife, who worked at a hospital. You know, I was like, hey, here's me in my lab. Like, what do you look like? I had a Tyvek suit on, a face shield, a bandana, goggles, a mask, gloves, everything.
Yeah, I haven't seen Lisey's story yet, but I actually read the book. I've been flying through audiobooks the last few years, and I really like the book. So I've been wanting to watch the series. I know it's I forget what was it, Apple Plus?
It's Apple. I don't have Apple. It's one of the few streaming services I don't have, so I haven't had a chance either.
Yeah, but I've been looking forward to it. So how has that affected your career too? The rise of streaming sites, because there's so much cool content on all these different things.
That's it. Just like the comic book movies we were just discussing, the more networks, the more content is needed. So, I mean, it's the only breaks I have right now are by choice. So there's always something, especially in New York. There's now even trickling into New Jersey. Like, there's so many networks to fill. So there's always something shooting, and it's more often than not something interesting with an amazing script with some really impressive talent attached to it. And they have the funding to do it right. You know, it's not cheapy. It's not the old days of network TV where where you have no budget, you got nothing. Like, these, they're putting the money where their mouth is, and they're making this stuff look good, and it shows.
Not just a budget. How about, like, you know, because that you can be more graphic on a streaming site.
Yeah, that too. I mean, that was with Evil in particular. We started as a network show, so that's an interesting one where you can actually trace the changes. Our first season we were on CBS, and our second season was shot for CBS. We found out just before we started shooting the last episode, hey, new deal has been made. We're going to be going to Paramount Plus. All of a sudden, the last script was filled with F-bombs and a little more blood, and they threw in some nudity. And that's where they've chased ever since. Now that, you know, they self-moderate, but no, there's no rating system. We can do whatever we need within reason. Very, very rarely do we get any pushback or any kind of notes of like, no, too far, too extreme.
Before that, did anything like stand out in your mind, like, oh, this is a little too far?
Oh, I mean, well, the show is created by Robert and Michelle King. They would always be, let's shoot it and we'll put on whatever we're allowed to put on. So they were always great. So that there's all sorts of footage of stuff we shot that I was like, this is never going to see the light of day. You know, severed heads rolling down the floor, just all sorts of graphic things. One of our regular demons biting the lead actor's arm and ripping away this giant gnarly hunk of flesh that's bleeding everywhere. We spent an hour shooting that, just, you know, take after take. Of course, it was never going to be in. They can't put that on CBS.
Yeah.
But yeah,
how about for other anything stand out like in other shows or that you've worked on that like you just never was seen?
I mean, American Horror Story, which was a first experience for me, jumping into a show that well precedented, you know, where they're in their 11th season and jumping in like that. We shot a lot more than they put on, which I don't think was because of any censorship. I think
because they're pretty they get away with a lot on American
just about everything.
Yeah,
but you know, we would shoot a bunch of sequences. You know, we spent 4 hours shooting this butchering of a body, always knowing it was going to get edited down to, you know, flashes. But like we shot these long takes of sawing and just gross pieces coming apart and all sorts of nastiness, and all that, you know, gets shoved away in the name of editing and pace. Yeah. But you know, it's still there.
Yeah. Is there anything you've ever done that's frustrating that's never been seen? Because when I had the Kyoto brothers who did Killer Clowns, they talked about, I forget the movie, but they made like a giant animatronic rat and it was not used at all. And like, they're still, you know, pretty upset about that.
I mean, I've had there's been things like severed heads that, you know, hey, make us a wide-eyed, photorealistic severed head of this actor, and you're going to have 9 days to do it. And then, you know, they're like, we're not going to shoot that. Like, so it happens. It's frustrating. You know, the check clears at the end of the day and everything else made it. So the sting goes away a little bit. But yeah, it always hurts when you've made a piece of art. It doesn't get its moment on film.
Mm-hmm. How about how something shot? Because there's another thing that's come up with my friend Joe Castro. He said, because he works a lot of indie films, and he said he'll make cool stuff, and sometimes the director just doesn't know how to shoot it, and that will frustrate him because it'll be too lit or not lit right. Yeah. Or
I'm gonna acknowledge my good friend Brian Spears, who is a marvel of just grabbing the ear of the DP and being like, well, here's how we should shoot it. He's amazing at that. So whenever he's with me on a show or on set, I'm like, hey, Brian, go get this one, because he's just got such an eye for it. You know, the man's watched 10,000 movies, more than I will in a lifetime. And but yeah, we always have to advocate for you know, what we want to show and how we want to show it, and we try to get that done early in the concept meetings, things like that. So when you get to set, that's already in play. But sometimes it doesn't translate. There's always a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and sometimes you have to go and be like, hey, remember we were going to shoot it like this, and that's why we made it like this, to best feature the effect. And more often than not, you're able to work it out. Sometimes you have to eat it.
So what's the difference between working on a show like Evil that you've been on for years, and I would assume you know everybody, and then getting involved in American Horror Story that has been around for 11 seasons?
It's like the difference is like being the one driving the carpool full of kids versus trying to race down the track and jump onto a speeding train. That is just not even going to hit the brakes. That was easily one of the hardest shows I've ever done. I knew that going in that it would be. I'm friendly with Erin Kruger, who's been with the show since season 1 and been with Ryan Murphy, I think, for like decades. So, you know, she talked me through. She's like, this is hard. There's going to be incredibly tight turnarounds and insane demands, and somehow you're going to get it all done. And she was right. And me and my co-department head, Milagros Serdiera, like we worked like we've never worked before. We had an amazing team. It all came together. But yeah, you're dealing with producers that have been there since day one, and writers that have been there since day one, and a lot of the actors have been there before. So you're kind of playing catch up on top of doing all the necessary work. So yeah, it's hard. If they came back to New York and I was offered the spot again, it would be a very different show. I would, I'd love to do it with the advantage of knowledge.
So that season, American Horror Story, New York City has a lot of S&M vibe going on and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, there were some subtle BDSM themes in there.
Yeah. So what do you do for research for that? Or maybe you're well versed in it anyway. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't really fall into the makeup effects world a lot, but it's all there in the script from go. We had the initial concept meeting where Ryan Murphy kind of says, "Hey, here's the theme of the season." Everyone, picks around and sees what they're going to be working with. 1981, gay club and S&M club scene. It's there's a lot of archival footage and history and notes.
I know.
So yeah. It was all there. Some of the raves, not raves back then, I guess, but the happenings and the parties, like there was great stuff to pull from, and just really, really vivid photos. So, just research, lots and lots of research, and trusting in the script. Not all of it was accurate. I was given notes from someone that, okay, well, if this guy is supposed to be the scariest dude, he wouldn't be wearing that ball gag. That kind of makes him a sub versus a dom. So I passed that note along to the wardrobe. They said, okay, yes, thank you, we recognize that, but they like the way it looks. So sometimes there's some inaccuracies, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I'd be interested if anyone ever heard back from anyone like in that lifestyle, if they were like, hey, this is not this should be different, or we really like this character, or
I mean, seems the show had, as every season of the show does, there were fans and critics all over the internet, but it seemed like the overriding theme really did catch people off guard and then emotionally, which was, I don't watch every season, but the ones I watch, they're not necessarily known for their emotional resonance.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to promote this guy, but I did notice that Ye has been wearing the Big Daddy mask in his interviews. I don't know if he's aware of that, but
I didn't know. I try to avoid if I can.
Yeah. So Smile, when you said so different people work on the big monster at the end, but do you guys get together so their things are like similar, so they're kind of like in the same universe?
Yeah, and I was in touch with the ADI folks, because it was a monster that started as one of the characters I was doing as Ma Carter, that's one where we could talk about, she was shot very dark. You didn't see the very elaborate character makeup that was on her every time she worked in every scene, but that's what happens. But they based the paint scheme on the mid-level monster mom, the nightmare mom before she rips her face open. So that paint job was meant to aesthetically match the paint job that I did on the mom. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth to keep everything cohesive.
Tom Woodruff worked on that, who I've had on the show. So did you work with him on your stuff, or was he more at the end?
No, I mean, I helped him facilitate his stuff with the monsters. ADI had nothing to do with the rest of it. For good or ill, I got to handle all that myself, but I was facilitating the monsters with him, finding the application team, bringing everything in. I actually got the performer that plays the final monster was Marty Matulus, who's one of our regulars.
I was going to bring another guy I've had on the show. Really cool guy. Yeah.
I love Marty. He's amazing. He's grown into a good friend over the last few years at Evil. And so I was like, when I was originally building that monster, I was like, hey, here's the performer I want to use. You're not going to find anyone better. So I was glad that ADI stuck with him. And then the other gentleman was Kevin Kepi, who I hadn't met before, but he was fantastic. And he's, now in my roster of creature performers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually noted him down because I like to I do kind of a sub series on here behind the monster, because I always find interesting to talk to the people who play monsters a lot, and I never talked to them.
It's a really wild profession. They always have amazing stories.
Yeah, definitely. So do you keep those people in mind? Like, oh, they're easy to work with, easy to put stuff on, and they're good at their job. So you kind of like just keep it in the back of your mind.
Absolutely. I mean, not even the back. Like, those are the guys you always try to get the ones can do it. Yeah, the if they're good in a suit like that and can handle that kind of rigorous day, coated in rubber like that, then you want to stick with them, because that's such a difficult job.
And I think some people overlook it. They just think any guy in a mask or whatever could play that. But I've seen movies where clearly the person isn't like a good physical actor, and it takes away from it.
Yeah, I've had some, as every other makeup effects artist I know. You've had some people where you wish, oh, I wish I'd gotten so and so instead of this person, because they make an already difficult job more difficult, and that only hurts themselves in the end, and it hurts how it looks on camera. That's the worst of it. I've had someone that couldn't perform and couldn't bring it to life in the way that the creation needs to be brought to, and at the end of the day, no matter how good it looks, it's an inanimate rubber or foam suit. Like, you need someone to animate it and activate it to make it not look like an old hokey 1950s monster.
Right. Just when you said that, though, in my mind, even that's kind of fun. I always thought like kind of bad physical effects are fun, where I think like bad CG to me is just bad. It's not
I agree with that. Fun. There's a nostalgic joy to a bad effect and a cheesiness that can still be appreciated. Which, you know what, when you think about it, I guess you can kind of do that with CG too. It just takes time. I mean, you can watch the Scorpion King now and laugh along with the Rock CG 20 years removed, in a way that at the time you couldn't.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just because I grew up with like real effects, but a lot of the CG from like when it started to take off, if you watch it now, it does not hold up at all.
No, I mean, with the sole exception of Jurassic Park and T2 that really put the money into it, like, a lot does not hold up. And I mean, there is kind of you watch those made for Sci-Fi Channel movies, and there's some joy in watching this terrible, not even Photoshop level spider running across the screen. Right. And there's some silly joy to that too.
Yeah. And I realize that there's different audiences, because I'll see like people a lot younger than me on Facebook talk about really liking that stuff, and then I think, oh, well, that's the stuff they grew up with. So, I grew up with Basket Case and the stuff and things like that.
Freddie was my childhood hero at 7 and 8 years old. I was hit by a car at 8 years old and in the hospital for a stay. Oh, wow. And all the Get Well cards from my third grade class were drawings of Freddie. Like, he was as big as Mickey Mouse. He had a 1-900 number back then. Like, he was my hero growing up.
Yeah. Is that, speaking of that, when did you think like, oh, this is something I would like to pursue and actually, become a career?
Around that age, actually. It was the 1-2 punch in a year's time of Return of the Jedi and Ghostbusters and the accompanying TV specials that were like, okay, this is for me. This is what I want.
And how did you go about at that time, like, pursuing that? Did you even know it would be something you could pursue?
I genuinely didn't, in the capacity that I'm doing it, till I was maybe 21 years old. I originally went to Hofstra University and enrolled in their film program because there was a makeup class in the film program. And I was like, okay, well, that's how I have to do it. I have to join, I have to become this and go in through the back door. And then Hofstra just wasn't a match for me. So while home and just working, I came across an ad for the Art Institute of Pittsburgh in the back of Fangoria, bless its heart. And that's where I was like, okay, I can actually make a full solid career of this. Like, it's not, it's not unheard of. It's not as much of a rarity as I thought. So I went to school. I found I had an affinity for it. I worked my ass off. And as soon as I was out, I started working and opened my shop within a year of graduating.
Oh, wow. So, and your shop is what, Monsters
in My Closet.
Yeah. What, I mean, it's a great name, but does it have a personal significance?
No, just what I grew up with.
What did your parents think when you were like, this is something I want to do?
I mean, they were pretty supportive. Not so much of the part where I was 8 and watching the horror movies and then on a nightly basis saying, I can't sleep. And they're like, okay, well, no more horror movies. I'm like, okay, until the next day when I'd watch another one. But besides that, yeah, they were always very supportive. I mean, my very first shop was their garage. So they were exceedingly happy when I moved out of there and started renting my own. But yeah. They helped me out tremendously.
And what was it specifically about Freddy Krueger?
I mean, it was the mix of comedy and just over the top, elaborate, amazing makeup effects. The third one is the one that first grabbed me. I went back and enjoyed the first two after that, but part three, Dream Warriors, is the first one I saw, and it was just so over the top in such a good way.
Mm-hmm. I think the third one, I think most people think that's the best sequel, and some people that's their favorite. And watching it again myself, I think a big part of it is it's the first one where like all the one of the first, like any slashers, where like all the protagonists work together, and they're also all likable. It's like the kills are cool, but you actually feel bad when the kids get killed because they're likable. You actually want them to succeed.
Like I felt bad that like they made the junkie who had gotten clean, that he killed her. Like there's some real solid subtext there. Like he didn't just kill her, like he like broke her and defeated her. He made her do drugs to like he OD'd her. Like that's not just a slasher. Like there's some meat there.
Yeah, I think it's a good bridge between the first one. He's very like evil and nasty, and so he still has that in the third one. And then after that, they're very comedic, and so it has kind of the bridge between both, where it's comedic, but it's still like a scary horror movie at the same time.
Yeah, he was still very sinister.
Yeah. The only thing when I watch it now, the main doctor guy, he very comes up. I was like, he's very similar to Bill Maher to me from that era. Like I was like, he's like, they couldn't get Bill Maher or something to get this guy. I don't know. But that's another one that has good themes too about mental illness, and kind of before its time on that.
Yeah.
There's a really weird dialogue in that movie where like they blame the one kid who they think kills himself, and they're like, he's weak, and they're just yelling at the kids, and I was like, man, this is kind of weird.
Afterwards when they're in the circle group, yeah.
But overall, it's great. Not too long ago at a theater in Brookline, they showed all the first 7.
Oh, that's
one
awesome.
through noon, all in a row. It was midnight till like noon the next day, and it was very fun. Yeah,
it's been years since I watched any of them. My daughter has gotten into horror movies in the last couple of years, and I keep telling her, I was like, okay, we can finally do this one. And we watched the first one, and she was like, okay, that was really scary. I'm not sure I want to watch the other one. So I was like, that's the right answer, but also, come on.
Well, eventually she'll get to the rest.
Yeah.
Do you have the third one was your favorite, I guess. Then.
Yeah, if I had to pick a favorite horror movie, that's the way I would go.
Yeah. How about your favorite monster? Would it also be Freddy?
No, I mean, as much as I loved his design, it's still relatively, I don't want to say simple and insult the many, many artists that have created him over the years, but it's a relatively simple design. It's just an extreme burn makeup. I had to pick a favorite monster. That's probably the Alien Queen.
Yeah,
just
that's
seeing something of that scale and that scope, and they shot it so well. Like it was just, she was terrifying.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome one. What about for Alien movies? Which one is your favorite then?
The first one is still my hands down fave. Aliens is great. It's a fun as hell action movie, but it's an action movie. There's scares in it, but Alien is just tense as hell and super scary, and just it was great.
Yeah, to me, like exactly what you said, Aliens is a fun movie, but Alien is a better movie, I'd say.
Yeah,
and it is more of a straight up horror movie, where the second one is an action movie. Not that that's totally bad. You can have fun action movies.
I mean, thinking about it, Cameron's never really done a horror movie. Like that's as close as he's come to anything with real scares.
Yeah, Piranha 2.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Corrected.
Well, I always remember that
as director.
Lance Henriksen's autobiography, which is great, not bad for a human. And he talks about that was like his first movie, and like he said everyone else in the movie knew it was like this crappy movie and they didn't really try. And he's like, yeah, he knew that, but he gave it his all. And so did the director, who was James Cameron. And James Cameron always remembered that, and that's why he had him in like his stuff for years after that, which I thought.
That's how I try and approach every project, even the ones I know are garbage, and they still come along from time to time. But I still like if I'm on the job, that means they've hired me. It means they're paying me. I'm gonna give it my all. Excuse me. Like once I'm there, I'm there. Like I'm not gonna half-ass it and say, well, this one's just some shitty little indie that's gonna wind up in the dumpster. Like you never know. Like you absolutely never know what movie's going to hit big.
Yeah, our first guest on the show was Sid Haig, and he said the exact same thing. And it was, I mean, he's always like known, but it wasn't until a lot later in his career where he got the Captain Spaulding and really became like like a horror icon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll admit I didn't know who he was prior.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Spider Baby, but it's not like he was like you knew Sid Haig from Spider Baby. I'm sure some people did,
I'm sure.
but
Yeah.
he knew that, you know. But he was a good guy anyway. So, Good Night Mommy. How did you get it working on that?
I think that was just a luck of the draw. I got a call from one of the producers. I put together a book. I had already been working on Evil at that point, which always helped. Like, hey, I'm well versed in monster world. And they just liked what I gave them. I was really involved with the director Matt Sobel in the design of the creature, which was a nice change of pace. Because until that point, it was rare to have a director that hands-on, where like he was sending me sketches. Like, I sent him a design and he approved it. And then when we got into the sculpting phase, like he was able to, from my sculpture, do this really intricate, beautiful pencil drawing showcasing the changes he wanted, which A, was super helpful, but B, was just, it was amazing that he was making all of his gorgeous art based on my art, which was based on his work. Like it was really cool back and forth.
Do you prefer that? Someone who is really hands-on in that?
I mean,
and
if
like
it's a
telling what
positive experience like that,
Right.
absolutely. Sometimes too hands-on can be extremely negative. I've had that happen too, where it's like, okay, you hired me because I'm good at my job. Please let me do my job. But again, it all comes down to how they're engaging with you. If it's a positive interaction, then totally.
Well, when you work on something like that, do you go and watch the original movie? You know, if it's a remake or something.
That one I had seen, but yeah, and I mean, it depends. It's nice to kind of not be influenced by that,
Right.
if you can avoid it. But at the same time, you want to honor what's come before, and you want to make sure you're not unintentionally, mimicking.
Yeah.
In this case, I think we gave a good nod, but definitely made it our own.
Yeah. The original is a great movie too.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen the remake. I hate to.
I mean, it happens. There's a lot of content out there.
No, but I would like
good.
to see it because I really liked the first one. So
She's very good. The kids are great. Like it was, yeah. That was a really nice experience, and the film turned out nice. It would have been nice if it went bigger. It kind of came and went away real quick. It's there forever, of course, but like there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of promotion, and it just kind of got dropped after a long time in post. So I wish it had had a little more notoriety, but it happens.
have you thought of or done any writing or wanted to direct anything of yourself, your own?
Writing, no. The occasional good idea, but I can't do anything with it. I am in no way, shape, or form a skilled writer outside of the occasional witty text. Directing, I've entertained the notion from time to time. I don't know that I could, but I'd love the idea of directing some second unit stuff. I've gotten to direct some effect sequences on a smaller scale, but it's nice to toy with the idea. I don't know that I have the stamina for that kind of involvement where you have to be on top of every department and know what they're doing and trust them to do it, but to just kind of have that full knowledge of every department and every function going on all the time.
Maybe you could start with a short, see how you like it.
I've had ideas for shorts prior, and it does seem like fun. I'm not gonna lie, like I've been closely involved with friends that have done shorts. I just worked on one for my buddy Joel, and like he was directing, and just watching how engaged he was with it, like it really does seem like an amazing process. But that was 1 or 2 days shooting, and then a bunch of smaller little things here and there. The idea of a movie where you're spending 5 months like that, or even 3, like that's tough. That takes stamina, like in a very different capacity than the endurance I have when our job takes it too, but in a very different way.
What was the short that you worked on?
It's called Old Time Radio, and this one was Your Move. It's a little series he has. Great creatures in it.
It does, because I thought I remember seeing your name in the credits, because I saw it in LA. I think it was LA. It was either
I think I talked to you about it. I said if you're going to that one, we had exchanged words.
Yeah, Screamfest.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing monsters in it. It's very fun. I didn't realize it was part of like an anthology or something.
Yeah, that was the third one. It'd be cool to do a wraparound piece.
Yeah, Rick Baker was involved, I think. you still hear me?
Yep. Sorry, I got a call
Oh.
from the refrigerator that's being delivered tomorrow.
All right, fair enough. I think Rick Baker was involved in that short too.
The refrigerator one, yeah.
Yeah, he played the refrigerator.
Yeah, no, he got Rick. That was a surprise to me. I didn't know until I saw it. I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah, it was. Oh, and it was like Paul Giamatti. It was all like pretty. It was big people involved.
So Rick has popped into a couple of shorts made by makeup effects people. He was in Dave and Lou Elsie's short film as well.
Oh, I think that's cool though. Someone,
Yeah.
Rick Baker, and then it shows to me that he loves the effects.
Oh,
and wants help, the next generation.
There isn't. I don't think there's a man alive enjoying their retirement quite as much as he is. Just what a true artist. He has not a day goes by that he's not sharing some new thing he's created. He just never stops.
Yeah. What are some of the things there behind you?
Oh, I was trying to look behind you when you said that. Let's see. Oh, gee, that's what's left from Goodnight Mommy.
Oh, okay.
This is one of the monsters from Evil I made. Usually Joel's team makes the monsters, and I just facilitate with application on site on the Brooklyn side of things because the creature shop's in California. That was one from last season that I got to take the reins on because they were so slammed. What else? A couple heads from American Horror Story.
I saw on your Facebook someone I should have the name here. He posted pictures from behind the scenes when you did him as the Sentinel.
Oh yeah, Nick. He was amazing. That was his first time doing anything like that. He's one that I would absolutely use again. He's joined the ranks of solid creature performers.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. It was almost Frankenstein kind of sewn together guy, and yeah, it was pretty
wild. That's not even the first Frankenstein monster that's appeared on American Horror Stories. They seem to pop up every few seasons, so it was nice to get to do our own version.
Yeah. What was the hardest thing to pull off on American Horror Story?
That one. It was a very tight turnaround. In the middle was the first time I caught COVID. The one I mentioned earlier was my son catching it, so I was on. So that was the first time I got it. Didn't change the turnaround time because the show goes on. Thankfully, I got it light, so I wasn't incapacitated. I was symptom free, but we still had to quarantine and everything. So we worked literally around the clock. So Brian Spears and a rotating cast of other artists, Phil Hara and Pete Gerner and a couple other guys here and there. They would come in from like 10 o'clock until 5 or 6 p.m. I would wave to them from the other side of the fence at 6 o'clock, like, "Hey guys, like tag in," and like they would leave. We'd talk from across the lawn, and then I would work until I dropped. Come back in for a couple hours in the morning from 8 until 10. Same hi from the other side of the fence, and be on my way. Go home, catch some sleep, and do it all again. And we spent about 10 days like that until I was, or no, I guess that was the first week until I was cleared to return. But worked around the clock for almost 10 full days with another couple days to pull it all together.
Mm-hmm. You said like so some of the things you work on, like they're worked on both in like LA and on the East Coast.
I mean, it depends on the show. On Evil, that is the case. Joel was hired separately from me for the pilot. Joel was hired to do the monsters. I was hired to do the day-to-day special effects. And in this case, I hit it off with Joel, so he invited me to be part of the creature team. So I supplement for him here. I facilitate all his on-site needs, and then I get to help applying the monsters, applying and painting on the day, and gluing it all down and making it all come to life.
Yeah. So do you ever go out to LA to work on any of the stuff?
He invited me onto one show earlier this year, which sadly, due to a house fire, I had to turn down, which broke my heart. Amazingly, so he's like, "Hey, come out and you'll spend a few months in the shop, and then you'll come to set." And it was great, and it was I can't mention the project, but it was a big one, and I would have geeked out for a long time.
Yeah.
But it all worked out. I mean, literally 2 days later was when the call came in for Horror Story. So I was like, okay, well, that worked out nicely at least, because I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was planning to ship off to LA and then Atlanta. But yeah, so no is the shorter answer to that is no, I don't go out to California. Yeah. But I've been invited plenty of times. And
sure. Well, what's the differences between working on a series and a TV show? Because a lot of series today used to be like a series would be a lot lower quality, but I don't think that's the case anymore.
No,
They're basically
absolutely not.
8 to 10, 12-hour movies, really.
And I mean, the stuff we're pulling off on Evil, I mean, Joel gets that credits completely. The monsters that are being made for a TV show are unprecedented. I mean, those are 100% hero film quality. Each one could be the star of a movie. That's how much precision is put into them and how much care we put in all the way through to application. Like each one could be a featured performer in a film. And we do that many times per season, episode after episode. So yeah, there is no line in quality anymore. You want everything to just be top tier.
Yeah. I can't ask you to pick your favorite, but would Evil
whichever
be
one
like
is currently paying me.
would Evil be like the most personal like thing for you since you've been on it so long?
I mean, I can say without shadow of a doubt, Evil is my favorite job of my whole career. I had been waiting for something like it my entire life, let alone my entire career. But yeah, no, it is hand down my favorite, and I've loved the vast majority of the projects I've worked on. I've been incredibly lucky to be involved in things I, for the most part, really, really like, which, you know, is rare. But I mean, maybe it's just because I genuinely love my job, but like, I really do love most of what I've worked on. But yeah, Evil is still, I mean, it's an endless sea of monsters. Like what is, and then there's still fun gore effects. And I actually got sucked into the show and enjoy it for the show. Like that's another rarity. I don't usually watch a lot of what I worked on, but I'll skim through and see how our stuff looked. This one, in skimming through, I was like, all right, well, let me just watch this one. I was like, oh, wait, I really like this. And I got sucked right in as a fan.
Yeah. I would assume it's hard to even watch something you worked on as a show. Like you would see it more as like, oh, I did this. And
yeah,
I know this person.
You got to watch it maybe twice.
Yeah. I know from experience now. I've been part of something.
I mean, that's the credit I'll give to Smile is, you know, even expecting the things to come, like I got sucked into that one, like completely, like just watching as a viewer, all the way in. I mean, and I'll say that because I don't necessarily have to be on set every day with most of the shows I work on, and I read the script so far removed from when it airs. I do get to enjoy it more so than some do, where I'm not completely taken out of the entire story.
Yeah, and I'm like I said, I was glad it did well. And people always talk about no one sees any movies besides the Marvel movies, but at least a lot of the lower budget, which is a relative term because
it is.
I mean,
and this one will qualify. That was a I think maybe $20 million movie. Like obviously not micro budget by any stretch of the imagination, but not a $250 million movie either.
Right. Yeah. But people went to see it and it's done really well and became profitable. And I'm happy because I'm a horror fan. So I like to go see it. I love
anytime horror does well, it's good for the horror industry.
Yeah. That's like, I know you're not involved, but
like,
yeah, I know you're not involved with Terrifier movies, but I have friends, especially at the festivals, they're very anti-Terrifier. And I always say, even if you don't personally like it, like it's good that this movies got theatrical released. It's good for all you guys at festivals that it played same festivals we did. Like that gives you guys hope that your stuff could play festivals.
That's exactly it. Like I haven't seen them, but I'll cheer it on from start to finish. I'm blown away. Like what is it? Several $1 million on a that one had a micro budget like that.
The first one was very small. From my understanding, the second one I think was $250,000, which is still very small.
It's a good chunk of money for an indie film, like a tiny indie film. But yeah, that's nothing. Like that's our craft service budget. Right. So to see it do this well is absolutely amazing. And yeah, that is such a raw moment for all indie horror.
Yeah, and at first it was going to play like 3 days, and then I think it's still in the theaters. So
yeah.
It's definitely not for everybody. It's very violent, and I get that, but like you said, it's good to cheer it on. So what are you working on currently?
We just started the 4th season of Evil.
Oh, excellent.
I blinked and American Horror Story wrapped, and I was right into this one, and before Horror Story was Evil. So that's been my last. I went immediately from Goodnight Mommy to Smile to Evil to Horror Story back to Evil. It's been a really nice horror ride for a while. It's been a long time since I've had this many horror projects back to back.
Yeah, I'm sure it's nice not only to work on that, but you get to see everyone that from the movie or from the show.
Absolutely. This one, I mean, Horror Story in terms of just that kind of thing, that'll always be one of my favorites, just because I got to spend so much time in the shop with so many like great artists and people that, you know, I lucky enough to call friend as well. Like, you know, I love that camaraderie, just hanging out in the shop and you're making stuff and you're working your ass off and it's stressful and there's no way to understand it unless you're in the trenches with that person. So you form some really tight bonds in short time. It's nice. That's so, and I got to do that a lot on the last one. So
yeah. And I mentioned your family when you started to get into it. Do they watch your movies and your shows? Do they watch your work?
Sometimes. My daughter absolutely loved Smile, which was great. She wanted to go back and see it several times. My son had to leave about 20 minutes in, which I also took with a touch of pride, because he was like, I can't do this. I can't watch this. Can I go? And I was like, okay.
It is a scary movie. Like, not to be a tough guy, but I've watched it my whole life, so it's not necessarily that I get scared, but it is. It's got a lot of cool.
But you can
scares.
Still recognize it.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. But yeah, that was awesome. I love the movie. And so I don't know if you're involved in this, but how do you make a smile creepy? Even just the smiles are creepy and smile.
I mean, we talked about that because they were, when in the script, they were written a lot more ghoulishly. A lot of the visions were on paper scarier. And then as we got closer and closer, I was like, no, I think we can do this with, at first it was going to be just performance and a little CG augmentation. And then we got there and even that wasn't needed. So it was just these people giving their really creepiest smile, and so many of it worked. The first woman, the one who cuts herself, like that was all her. Like she was covered in a character makeup as well. So really, it was just the mom who had any kind of ghoul makeup, like when she would pop in from the shadows in that amazing Exorcist Captain Howdy way. There, we did some scary makeup on her, but she was the only one. Everyone else was just their natural creepiest smile, which if you hold it without blinking, like there's something unsettling to it.
Definitely. For the CG, you said, how does that work? So you guys are doing physical makeup. Like, is it a separate CG team, and do you guys like work together?
Yeah, there's a separate VFX team, and it's all, you know, hopefully always done in tandem, so you know what everyone's going to do and what's expected from each department. So, for example, for that throat slash, you know, it was like, okay, well, we're going to have this tube dangling. We can either try and hide it, or we can just have you rub out the tube. And in this case, rub out the giant slash, because they wanted a particularly large wound on her neck. So usually when you do a slit throat, the old school trick is you have them down, you cut, and you have them lift their neck, and that reveals the existing wound. This one, they wanted much too large to do that. So we do what's called a heel and reveal, or a paint reveal, where she comes on with the appliance on that already has the giant wound in it, and they paint it out until she's crossing it. And then the cut is revealed. The VFX reveals the practical cut. It's a really, really nice hybrid. And we do a lot of things that way. You know, it's the best toolbox, the best tool in the toolbox for each job. And each gag is assessed on its own merit. And what's the best way to go about this? Can it be just practical? Can it be just VFX? Or is it going to be both? And the best ones are usually a little bit of both.
Yeah. When you mentioned Jurassic Park earlier, I mean, I think that's why that stands up really well too, because it was both, and
brilliant mix.
And they really paid a lot of attention to detail, because I think they get you could feel like the weight in that, where I think a lot of CG you can't. It feels like you can't really feel like the weight's not there.
Yeah, cartoon physics.
Right. And I remember just watching the behind the scenes of it, and like that was something like Spielberg himself and people, like they really were focused on to try to make it just so it would feel right.
I mean, it's wonderful to have seen the renaissance in the last few years of how much practical, like audiences did finally get tired of rubber monsters. CG rubber monsters. I mean, monsters that look like they're made of rubber because they can do whatever they want. There's no physics attributed to them, and there's no weight and there's no gravity, and no one's really interacting with them. And audiences got a sense of that, and it's found a really, really happy medium for the time being, I think. From the Marvel movies where half the cast is covered in prosthetics, and then you have a Hulk standing next to them, fine. Back to horror, where so many directors are just like, no, I want something real on set. I want blood actually splattering on the actors.
Yeah. Do you think that's or is it a combination of the audience and also Some directors today are people who grew up with that, and so that's what they want.
I think that's a lot of it. Yeah, I think there is absolutely a nostalgic element to it, to have it more like, especially knowing what they can do now, to say, like, okay, well, I loved it 30 years ago. With the advances that are now possible, like, I mean, there are things that I've seen that I was 100% convinced had to be CG, and it's like, no. And I see them like go online, and all of a sudden someone's posting photos on Facebook, and it's brilliant. And I'm like, okay, that was real, amazing.
Yeah. Well, like one of the monster guys we had on, Javier Botet, he said like people actually think he's CG in a lot of stuff, and it's just
Because it's
it's
so
him,
good. Yeah.
and that's it's kind of wild. I don't want to say the movie because I like the people who made it stuff, but there's a recent movie I saw, and it had the worst blood effects I've ever seen, and I think that's one of the things that's just does not look right. It's very hard to pull off like
CG
CG
blood is
blood.
tough. Yeah, and I mean, I understand the need for it, because resets on blood are very time consuming, and why not just say, okay, we can get that later. We're one and done on this take now. But yeah, it's we have a great method for Evil where we do a clean take until the director is happy, so that if there's something there that they absolutely loved, they've got that locked and it's in camera and they can do CG blood. And then we go to the practical blood elements and we shoot it properly. And more often than not, those wind up in the show. The only reason it really doesn't is, performative. If the actor gave a better take in a clean one, then they'll hybrid it and add in the blood and then cut to the real blood back and forth. But yeah, I think that's a good way to go. You should always get that real take.
Yeah. Have you ever been your own monster in any of the movies or TV shows?
I haven't. I almost played one on Evil, but I was about a foot and a half too short. So,
all right. Well, maybe the few would that be something you would like to do?
I'm a little claustrophobic, so it would be
All
a
right.
challenge. But yeah,
I would be the same
also
for
seems
that
like
part.
fun.
Yeah. Have you ever even done that though? Had like the I forget the name of it, but
The life gas.
Yeah.
I have had two. That's one of the places I learned I was claustrophobic. I was doing it to put myself as a severed head cameo in a great indie film I did a long time ago called Blood Night. And as the then still alginate was dripping down my head, I was like, oh, something's very wrong. I can't do this. But I discovered that by talking, I felt okay, and being able to control the situation a little bit. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this with my mouth open, and I'm going to distort the cast a little bit by talking, but I'm going to try ventriloquist style and to keep my mouth moving as little as possible and get through it. Wound up having to do a decent amount of resculpting, but I got through that one.
I would assume though that experience would help you with actors after that, because then you've also experienced it.
Yeah, I learned that back when I was in school. That was the first time I was live casted, and I had a stuffy nose, so I was already having kind of a hard time breathing. And the two people that were casting me just straight up walked away from me. So sat there trying to remain calm, like, okay, of course they're going to come back. They're not just going to leave you like this. So yeah, it gave me a really good bedside manner from go with my actors on how to help them through a live cast, knowing that most of them or many of them have never done it, and it's it's unlike most things. There's very little you can relate it to.
Where can people follow you to see what you're up to? Not back to your house where you are, but
I mean, yeah, I'd prefer they didn't follow me, but if they've got to. Instagram is the best place. My website's been pretty defunct for the last decade. But
it has a very cool comic book cover, though. I will say.
I every now and then, every couple months, I'm like, I gotta update. I love the template too much. I constantly renew it because one day I will do it again. But the world kind of veered away. Like once social media became more the norm, and my Instagram I keep as pretty much 99% work related. It's much more rapid. Like, here's what I've got. Here's what I can as soon as something's cleared, I can get it up. I don't have to go through my webmaster. There's no programming involved. It's post, go. That's what I'm up to. And it's this ever-present online portfolio. So that is the best place. It's J Selenfriend on Instagram.
Yeah, it's been weird. I remember when I started the show, 2000. Well, the first one was 2005. It was we had our own message board, and no one goes to things like that anymore. I think it's probably still there, but I don't know even how to access it or anything.
My industry, we had one called the Monster Lab, which then became the Effects Lab. And I mean, we all knew each other on there, even if we didn't know each other in the real world, because that's where you went to exchange ideas and post photos and ask questions. And it was such an amazing community.
Just real quick is so I did a wrestling podcast first, 2005, and all of us knew each other from a wrestling message board. That's how we all met. And, yeah, and it was pre podcast. People, there wasn't even a term yet, but now everyone has a podcast.
Yeah. I don't, if it makes you feel better.
Oh, no, it's fine. I wasn't complaining or anything. I just remember when I used to ask people back in 2005, 2006, there would be a common like, oh, I don't do internet. I only do terrestrial radio.
Yeah.
And that's really flipped because it's like,
it was the dirty step cousin.
Yeah. It's like, well, like, are they going to do like a local radio out of Poughkeepsie or something, or I guess unless you were had an event in that area, there's no real reason to do that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This has been very fun to talk with you. Oh, we should give out a shout out to Craig Lindbergh.
Oh, Craig is the best. Little Craig, he's amazing. Yeah, he pushed me into doing this. I kind of missed my moment. I was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I got 2 big horror projects out at once, and I didn't capitalize on it at all because, I'm an artist. I'm stupid. And Craig was like, why don't you get in touch with Neal? I was like, that's a really good idea, Craig. You're
I'm glad he mentioned it, and I'm glad he came on. And I really love Smile. And my mom's favorite, I'm not just saying this here, her favorite season of American Horror Story was the New York City one.
Oh, no fooling. That's awesome.
So I don't know if that says about her or me, but that's
it means you might have to have a conversation. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm glad. It was one of the most amazing, unique experiences I've had. I'm really glad, even if they never come back to New York, I'm glad I could jump into that world for a few months.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right, so I was happy to have you back on, and we'll do it again sometime.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
this was a blast.
Yeah, it's great. And I have credits here with our music of the month. Dylan Mars Greenberg, he's gonna play us out, so you can stay for the music if you want, or I know you have to take off, so. But for everyone else, they can listen to the tunes.
Awesome. Thanks, Neal.
Thank you. All right, here I go. Hopefully. This takes me a sec. Here we go.
Eyes so you can see. You took the caution in the wind. You laughed and broke it on your knee. And it was fun when you were young, but now there's too much to run from. Do you disagree? Ask why I'm never around. Don't hear me begging you not to pass the stop sign while you cut the brake lines just for me. And don't you feel the deja vu? 'Cause it's in my bloodline, always two reactions guaranteed. I'm the anomaly.
All right. Well, thank you, Dylan Mars Greenberg. And I'll be back next week with the 35th anniversary reunion of I Was a Teenage Zombie, which, from what I understand, a lot of the cast and crew have not seen each other in decades. So that'll be very fun. All right. And thank you, Jeremy.